Hello, welcome to part 2 of this series on how to ensure that your building project in Ghana is successful, but also you are able to cut costs where it matters. In this video, I will be sharing some tips on how to ensure that you're able to cut costs, but also to ensure that you're able to have the right quality for your building. And then I'll end the video by sharing the cost breakdown of this entire 3-story building from foundation right to the very finish. So stay tuned as I give all of these details to you, and I hope that it's able to help you to make some decision and to plan. It'll be great to know your thoughts as you hear some of these details, right? So put that in the comments as we go. So when it comes to costs, one of the important points that I can give, besides ensuring that your bill of quantities is right and everything makes sense, is to actually be involved in the process of the building itself, especially in the initial stages. Look at videos, ask questions, ensure that you actually understand what is going on, you understand the structure, and be confident to ask for changes. Like in the case of this particular structure, we're able to change different things. We're able to change certain floors from 2 bedrooms to 3-bedroom structure. We're able to change some rooms from what they were going to be, maybe some study room, into an actual room, which allowed more flexibility in terms of how the rooms will be used. And we were able to request that, okay, the roofs should be higher. Certainly certain things, when you require for them, they would increase the cost, but at least you know what you are doing. But when you are involved in the process, it ensures that you don't overrun with certain costs, you don't redo certain things when you don't need to, right? So just be involved in the process. It might end up helping you save a lot of costs. Like when it comes to the foundation, cost cutting is very minimal. Maybe you may decide on certain things, like should there be a manual excavation of the trenches or should there be a machine, and you may have to do some calculation there to know which one is cost effective, right? And sometimes it's dependent on how deep things have to go, how much time has to be spent, the size of your foundation, all of that. And so if you are involved, you're able to help and work with your builder to ensure that the ones that make sense in terms of cost and effectiveness is taken, or the path that makes sense is taken. The other thing I'd like to share about costs is that when I speak about cost cutting, I don't actually mean compromising on quality, because quality is important for the long run. Let's say in the case of this structure, there were certain quality demands that I had to put for my builder in terms of making sure that it is damp proof, and not just that, like it's like insisting on extra quantities of certain materials where it mattered, and I didn't really care too much for a little bit of an extra cost for a higher quality in order to get what I want for the long term. So insist on the quality regardless of how much costs you want to cut. And it's very important to build on a solid foundation. And that reminds me of a certain verse in the Bible in Matthew chapter 7, 24, which says that everyone then who hears these words of mine, this was Jesus speaking, and does them, will be like a wise man who built his house on a rock. The rain fell, the floods came, the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. And this was talking about everything has to be based on the foundation of the word. Whether it is your marriage, your business, your schooling, your work, whatever you do has to be based on a certain foundation that will ensure that it actually stays. And particularly your being a Christian or being a child of God. But also in relation to building, you can actually learn from here that because this wise man built his house on a rock, that is on a solid foundation, the rains, the floods, the winds, all of that came, but the building still stood. So when you are building, especially if you are building a complex structure like a story building, like you have to be really particular about ensuring that the foundation is what you really want it to be. So build really, really solid foundation. Ensure that your quality is high, and that will end up saving or cutting costs in the long run. Now, onto the cost breakdown, because as I share the cost breakdown, I think I'll be able to remember some of the areas where cost was cut or quality was improved and so on and so forth. When it comes to the foundation, the cost of the entire foundation, including the initial design and the building permit, and also a little bit of some extended extra iron rods to go up on, like, to be able to use for the next structure. All of that costs 149,000 cedis and a little extra. And this was important for me. It's a story building. The foundation was super important to make sure that we got it right. So certain extra iron rods were used to ensure that there is more overlapping for the continuation pillar. Extra cost to me, but definitely more confident when the building is standing, and I love that choice. So that was the cost for the foundation and making sure that the foundation substructure or the bed was in place. Now, the ground floor structure itself, all the way to lintel and decking, costs 184,000 cedis, and again a little extra there. That was the cost. Mind you, there had been some extra cost that had been put in the foundation, which reduced this a little bit, but that was the cost of getting the entire ground floor up to the decking. And then when it comes to the first floor, which in some countries actually the second floor if they count the ground floor as the first floor. So when it comes to the next floor on top of the ground floor, the total cost, again this involves the entire cost of doing all the block work up to the decking, was 196,000 cedis 400 and some coins. Now this was a little higher than the second floor because, like I said, the second floor's costs, some of it had been put into the foundation in terms of the iron rods that were overlapping for the continuation pillar. So that is the cost for the first floor. And then on to the last floor, which is the second floor. The total costs was 154,000 cedis 500 and some coins. Now this would have been more expensive because initially, if you actually look at the drawing, you see that at the top there were plans to actually put some rooftop area where I can sit and lounge and do other things. But again, our involvement in the project and thinking about the cost and the use of things in practical terms, just realized that, okay, this is not how it will be used and we don't actually need that. So we completely cut that side off. And so the decking of a much larger area was no longer needed and saved maybe about 40,000 cedis. And so that really helped with the last floor. So the total cost is that, right? Saving roughly 40,000 cedis or maybe $4,000. So, okay. So when we add everything up, it comes up to 684,775 Ghana cedis. Now, the project has been going on for a little under 2 years, right? So the average cost in terms of the dollar to cedi is $14.2 because it was at the time when the dollar was really high, and then the project has gone on through time as it has dropped, right, recently. So the average cost is roughly around 14.2, and so that gives us, or that takes us to roughly 48,200, give or take. You can wrap it up to 50,000. So I'll say this is a pretty good state. I love the quality. I love the choices that were made. The rooms were partitioned more from a 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom for certain floors. So with all of that, right, you arrive at the state, it was really high. If we hadn't started, we wouldn't have known that to be able to actually put out such amount of money to come to this stage. And initially, we were actually contemplating just getting it to maybe the first floor and then finishing it from there. And that would have helped to already get to a very close to finished state already and much earlier. But overall, I'm also looking at this, I'm glad that we went all the way for it. It looks nice, it looks amazing, it looks like a very good value for money. Again, if you watched the previous video, I shared why it may be necessary to continue decking your building and then going up to higher levels. In some cases it doesn't make sense, and it's probably just a good idea to get more land, but in other cases it just makes sense to keep going up in order to optimize the cost of your land. All right, so this is where we land. In the next video, I'll come and share more details, particularly about the finishing costs, right? So this cost structure touches on the whole structure all the way up. So I'll come and share details about the roofing, the plastering, the tiling, the septic tank, like all of that. They contribute to finishing the building, and those are also additional costs that have been incurred. I kind of have a straight line of sight to how much would have been spent to, like, by the time the project is done. I'll be sharing all that details in the next video, so stay tuned, subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are. Is this too expensive? Is it too low? And let's take it from there. All right, so enjoy your day and we'll talk again.